Welcome back to episode 9 of the Social Media Millionaire Podcast. This episode is going to be all about 7-figure strategies for leveraging ChatGPT in your business.
Yeah, I'm not going to say this is like an long-awaited topic, and this is also one of those where not a single person has asked for this, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
And honestly, everyone has been talking about this a little bit too much, in my opinion, on the internet.
I know, it's so annoying. Every other video on TikTok is like, ChatGPT. I'm like, we get it. Okay, it's cooler than Google.
It's all over YouTube. It's all over Twitter.
For the first like 2 or 3 months that it was out, I avoided it like the plague. I was like, that's so annoying. I'm not getting on the trend. And then finally I created an account and I was like, oh, this is pretty lit. Someone bullied me. He was so mean to me. He was like, why won't you use it?
So for the record, for all those who are listening, I actually finished this thing called college.
Oh my gosh. Don't even come at me with that right now.
No. Pause. So I study data science, which is a really broad term. But one of the big focuses of data science is taking all of this data and building machine learning, language processing models. And what ChatGPT is, it's a large language model, or an LLM. The biggest difference between a large language model and just a language model, or a natural language processing model, or NPL, is just the size of it. So what's really cool, what they've done, they've taken all of this data from the internet and trained this model and created ChatGPT, where you can get these amazing answers from all of the data that it's consumed.
I was just thinking about that TikTok sound where it's like, because you got your degree, so you know everything. That's all I could think of.
That's me. You're welcome.
No, but you're right. I mean, I think it's cool and I think it's good for people to kind of understand what it is, because most people don't. They're just like, oh, this is a really great way for me to not have to write captions anymore for Instagram.
Well, here's the thing you really need to understand, because you might think that because it's read all of that data, it's thinking like a human thinks in words, but that's not how these models work, because they're based off of like a neural net, which is kind of how the brain is wired, but it's a much more basic function. And what it's doing is it's like looking at the probability based off of what you ask, and it's looking at what you asked in a string of characters, not words, and then it's stringing together more characters based off like the probability of what it thinks you want.
So what does that mean for the people? Why do they care?
It means ChatGPT isn't perfect, and you should always double check it before you post anything. And just because you think it might be like really good copy for your website or anything else, you have to double check it, and you have to modify it and tweak it based off of what you know and what experience you have. Because if you're not using ChatGPT, you'll be left behind. I don't think we're going to see the point where like lawyers and accountants are just being replaced by the dozens.
I know. I think that's such a garbage fire crapshoot. Those videos, when I see those, they're like, your job is going to be taken over by ChatGPT. I'm like, immediate scroll.
No, you're just going to have to do like 4 times the amount of work with ChatGPT is the most likely outcome here. And you can look at what happened with accountants like in the 90s, because you have all these softwares like QuickBooks that were coming around, and Excel, where instead of having like hundreds of thousands of bookkeepers in the US, well, guess what? Instead of having tons of bookkeepers for all of these different companies, you just have a couple of people that are trained in QuickBooks and Excel that can handle, 10, 20, 30 people's worth of work prior. And that's what you've really seen, that transformation in that industry, with things like automation and technology. And all ChatGPT is another technology, but now it is vastly helping professional creatives such as copywriters, ad writers, scripting, content creators, business owners, and just so many facets where you can take something that is typically has a creative sense to it, and you can put that legwork in with ChatGPT to get so much more work done in a condensed amount of time that you just wouldn't have been able to do prior.
Yeah, I like to think of ChatGPT as like the marketing intern, right? You're not going to just copy and paste what they give you, but you can definitely cut out a lot of the busy work that you would be doing in the meantime, brainstorming, coming up with ideas, things like that. So let's dive into how we're actually using this in our business. So the first thing is lead generation, obviously, but that's a very, very broad topic also. Just FYI. What I did to plan this episode was I typed in the episode name, I went into ChatGPT, and I was like, give me 5 different talking points for 7-figure strategies for leveraging ChatGPT in an online business. And so this stuff, and I'm going to talk through like what it actually spit out for me and then what changes I made.
Our experiences, what we've seen other people doing it with, and what we've also used it for.
And so basically, this episode about ChatGPT is brought to you by ChatGPT. But that's a really good example of how I've been using it is I use it to kind of brainstorm different ideas, but I'm going to get into kind of the top 2 things that I've seen that have been really, really effective for me in my business specifically. So the first thing is pattern recognition. So what I've been doing with it is prompting it by feeding it different information to get out a similar output. So essentially, if I am wanting 10 ideas for podcast episode titles, rather than just trying to say, like, give me 10 episode titles that are kind of about like XYZ, I've been giving it previous episode titles of our podcast and then directing it to give me 10 more titles that are similar based off of and cohesive with the titles that I'm giving it. So in that, it's able to recognize certain patterns in what the titles were. I've also used it, I fed it like 100 of my own TikTok scripts and then had it spit out for me, new ones that like follow that same format. And because it's able to recognize those types of patterns and pull different elements from different places, been very effective in replicating the success of different episodes and videos and titles and all types of things that we have already in our business that we've been creating ourselves for years at this point. I've been able to just feed it that information and then it can spit out for me things that are very, very accurate to my tone of voice, to the ideas that I would normally come up with, very on brand for us, because rather than just asking it for ideas on a certain topic, I'm feeding it and teaching it to recognize these patterns based off of what we've already done. So then the stuff that it's spitting out for me is very, very effective. And it's a very strategic way to use this because just about any business owner listening to this, you have videos that you've already created. You have talking points that you've talked about on your stories, on your social media that people love. You have previous podcast episodes or previous YouTube videos or previous emails that you've written that you can feed it. So anything that you can do, use to train it.
And that's the really cool thing about ChatGPT is you can take your own data and add it into it. You're not just subject to the data that it's already been trained on per se.
Exactly. So that brings me to point number 2 around that, implementing it specifically for like lead gen and marketing is kind of along the lines of pattern recognition, but voice and tone training. So I did the same thing. I took a bunch of some emails that I'd written. I took some Instagram posts that I'd written and then asked it to write me another Instagram caption that followed the same tone that was about XYZ topics. And that also was very, very effective. I was sitting there reading it back and I was like, wow, did I write this? It was very effective to just train it based off of my tone of voice. So those are 2 really good ways that you can leverage it for new content, new creation, new ideas, and have it still be super aligned with you.
It's one of the things I really recommend doing because if you're not, you're just using what has been trained on. And that's what everyone else is using on ChatGPT. When you're doing something like that, it can be really dangerous in the creative space just simply because it's pulling content from somewhere else that's already out there. So you're just going to end up in some form regurgitating. So by feeding it your own unique creative ideas, you're able to continue to perpetuate those new and creative ideas
and customize the outputs. So that's been really, really powerful and effective for us in business when it comes to marketing specifically. It's just cut out a lot of the time that I would spend sitting and thinking and writing. It's been a really, really good way to streamline a lot of that. The other thing that I'll say is that it's been really great for just quick understanding of certain information, especially pertaining to different clients' businesses. That's one of the roadblocks that I've experienced. I want to be able to go really deep into someone's business and really be a partner for them in their business. And to a certain degree, it's difficult because although I bring in my own expertise and our team brings in our own expertise, sometimes it can be challenging to help with content and specifics and ideas there because we are not the experts in their business.
You don't have that domain knowledge, but ChatGPT does have that domain knowledge, or at least you think it does and it thinks it does.
So what I've been able to do is take, different submissions from our clients when they submit to us, like their brand activation worksheet that we have everybody do in TTI to get to the root of their brand, their story. I've been able to input their submission and ask it to summarize for me key points to, again, find the patterns, look for ways that we could clarify it, look for content ideas from this specific input. I've also been able to use it then to summarize and gather information based around their specific industry and what they're teaching. So based off of, their villain that they give me, their mission statement, their previous experiences, I can chuck those things into ChatGPT and have it spit back to me a really comprehensive overview of all the things that I kind of need to know that are key points around what they've submitted to me so that I can be even more effective in the ideas, suggestions, audits, etc. that I'm giving them, because not only do I have, that marketing and sales psychology base, but now I have a really good base understanding of what they do based off of inputs that they've given me that I then feed to ChatGPT. So that's also been super effective for me to just have even a deeper understanding of our clients and what they do so I can be even more effective for them. So that brings us to our next point, which is customer engagement. So along the lines of being more effective for your clients, there are so many, super common situations that I hear from clients in their own businesses that ChatGPT can solve. So, for example, a lot of people struggle with dealing with a client that's unhappy or knowing what to send if a client's payment failed, right? Any of those kind of sticky, uncomfortable situations that you get in with your clients, you often don't know exactly what to say. You don't know what the right thing to say is. And what we've recommended to some clients and what some clients have done and seen really great success with is they're able to give ChatGPT essentially just copy paste the message from that client or DM or email or whatever into ChatGPT and then say, write me a diplomatic response to this that hits XYZ point and presents two different solutions. So you can just give it the talking points of kind of what you need, and it can read your input and what the client said and spit back out a really good response for you. Of course, you can edit it and adjust it for your tone and all of that, but that's been a super effective tool, especially for my people pleaser business owners. I know that that can be sticky and difficult, and it allows you to really remove the emotion from a lot of the decisions and responses that would normally happen in your business.
Well, and what you can really see the effect of this having is, like you were saying, if you're a people pleaser, but you're not exactly the right, like mentally, you're not the best person for customer service. ChatGPT allows you to provide that level that another founder could provide that is really, customer service centric or oriented. But now that you have ChatGPT, you can have like the access essentially to that same capability.
Yep, you have access to essentially like a conflict management professional, and it's been a really effective tool even just for navigating, sales conversations. We have had previous clients that they have a really hard time holding firm with their boundaries or their pricing when they're overcoming objections in the DMs. So again, really, really great resource for them to copy paste that DM that they got from the potential client, throw it into ChatGPT and just kind of punch in, what they want the message to include. And then it can generate for you 3 or 4 different responses of how you could potentially address that onto that message. So again, just coming back to the main point, which is any people pleasers, sticky situations, emotional responses that you are tempted to give in your business, this can be a really, really great conflict management tool that really removes the emotion from business. It can really ease your mind. It can give you different examples, and it is very much a neutral third party, whereas maybe you go to your friend or your OBM and you say, oh my gosh, can you believe they said this to me? What should I say next? Right? Sometimes that advice can be a little bit skewed. I know all of you can resonate with that. And